Okay, so the pressure is mounting on the Spanish FA to sack women's head coach Jorge Vilda. This is obviously in response to him applauding suspended FA head Luis Rubiales following the latter's speech at the Spanish FA last week following the allegations of sexual misconduct that have now been raised. People were expecting a resignation speech. No, he was giving like almost a victory speech and a defiant speech against basically everyone in Spain, really. Now, there's been massive protests in Spain and overseas. Regional members have met with his interim replacement, Pedro Rocha, yesterday. That's to discuss restructuring of the Spanish FA, the complaints process, and basically how Spanish football is governed. Because this current scandal is a culmination of a lot of issues that are in place. Now, Jorge Vilda, while he remains women's head coach, 11 of his support staff resigned on Thursday following Luis Rubiales' speech. They resigned in protest that he was still in head of the Spanish FA. It was up to FIFA to suspend him for 90 days, pending an investigation. Now, they could ban him completely from football for forever if they want to. 81 Spanish players, both men and women, are refusing to play for the national sides, while Jorge Vilda is still women's head coach, and while Luis Rubiales is only provisionally suspended and not banned. They want both gone. They also are basically saying we also need restructuring, because the women's players have made multiple complaints about Jorge Vilda prior to the Euros last year. Players were boycotting that squad last year. Players were boycotting World Cup qualifying. Players were threatening to boycott the World Cup. Now, all the players involved in that World Cup win earlier this month are now boycotting playing for the national team going forward. If Jorge Vilda does not resign or get sacked, FIFA is considering banning Spain, the national side, and clubs from competitions. And that is actually actively being considered. But we've got to look at the problems with the Spanish FA are not dealing with. They're not dealing with alleged corruption with some of the biggest clubs in the global game, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Look at the debts they've racked up. Look at the corruption scandals that are now engulfing the game, where there's alleged dodgy payments to referees. Third-party payments getting around financial fair play. The massive debts that Spanish club football has accumulated. I mean, Deportivo La Coruña, who were a very successful side not that long ago, winning La Liga titles, competing in Europe at the latter stages, are now currently in the third tier of Spanish football. They've basically gone bankrupt. Valencia can't finish the Mestalla rebuild. That's taken nearly 20 years. Real Betis have gone bankrupt 3 times. Sevilla have had to transfer list their entire playing squad pretty much because they're running out of money. One of the most successful Spanish clubs in the last 20 years. Real Madrid and Barcelona continually flout financial fair play, yet they can't register players on time because they're over the Spanish salary limit. But they continue to sign players even though they have got debts in the billions. There is ongoing racism and abuse issues towards players within the Spanish game. Players regularly receive racist abuse. There is regular fan disorder in Spanish football that goes underreported by the European press because it's not British clubs misbehaving. It's not a problem, but it is. There's ongoing sexism and harassment of female fans and players in Spanish football. Multiple complaints were lodged with the Spanish FA about the women's head coach Jorge Vilda. Multiple complaints have been lodged against the suspended head Luis Rubiales about his conduct. So this is more than just Luis Rubiales kissing Jenny Hermoso without her consent. This is a culmination of many years of inactivity and lack of reform within the Spanish FA reaching a head. There are protests on the streets of Spain and overseas, ironically. FIFA were the ones who suspended Luis Rubiales. Various regional FAs that make up the Spanish FA, regional delegates, some of them quite openly are saying, we want Jorge Vilda gone, we want Luis Rubiales gone, and both, thoroughly investigated, not only by the Spanish FA, but by FIFA and UEFA. They are surprised that Jorge Vilda has not resigned alongside the rest of his coaching staff who did. the entire World Cup coaching staff have gone, apart from Vilda, who is remaining in his post. He has not resigned. So Pedro Rocha, the interim Spanish FA president, is got his in trays filling up quite quickly. Luis Rubiales clearly was not the right guy to be in charge of Spanish football. And in spite of all these issues, both the men and women's teams have been very, very successful. And that is in spite of all the structural problems, the lack of action on harassment, bullying, sexism, racism, homophobia, fan disorder, corruption at club level. Somehow, and Spain continually produces, talented football players. All clubs seem to just have a production line of talent at various levels of the game. The skill level and the technical ability cannot be doubted. But the game itself, the governance in Spain is well, shoddy at best. Various FA members want restructuring. Regional delegates are saying we need to restructure, we need to completely reform the Spanish footballing system because it's not sustainable. And this is more than just a sexism or a sexual assault scandal. This or a non-consensual kiss scandal. This is a culmination, as I say, of many years of neglect by the Spanish FA, an old boys club at the Spanish FA, turning a blind eye, not following up on complaints, not investigating complaints, regardless if there's truth to them or not. The fact that multiple people, players and non-players, were making complaints about Jorge Vilda. Multiple people were making complaints about Luis Rubiales, and no action was taken, sums up the state of Spanish football right now and the indifference of Spanish football right now. While Spanish clubs and the national sides continue to win, there is an indifference. There has been an indifference for so long, and the pressure is mounting. And normally I tend to be neutral, but in this case I'm very critical of sports governance. I have been for a long time, not just in football, or soccer as the North Americans would call it. I know I've got a lot of American viewers. I've been critical of sports governance across the board, really, for a long time. They don't care as long as trophies are being won, profits are being made, more money's coming in, and and sponsors are happy to continue to pump tens of millions of dollars, pounds, and euros into their sport. Now, football has time and time again, be it national governance of national FAs all the way up to FIFA, the corruption is there, the complaints process is poor, there's sleaze, there's inaction when complaints are raised about, dodgy things going on. Football governance is some of the worst governance you are going to see. The fact that there are calls now to restructure the entire Spanish FA from top to bottom tells you that that was the moment. The Luis Rubiales kissing Jenny Hermoso was the moment that the straw that breaks the camel's back, because this is a build-up of a lot of issues that have not been resolved for decades. But there you go, a little bit of a rant on this video. But there we go. Pressure is mounting on the Spanish FA to sack Jorge Vilda as women's head coach. Place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.